Welcome to User Insights, a podcast series powered by UXArmy.
Hey, hi, Yuval. Welcome to UXArmy podcast. This podcast is called User Insights, and I'm pleased to welcome you today. Um, when it comes to UX writing, I always think of Yuval, and it's purely a delight to have you at our platform, UXArmy. And this podcast is recorded for the benefit of a lot of people who are keen on listening to you about copywriting. I think it was a pleasure. So, yeah, why don't you introduce yourself instead of me
So
introducing?
first of all, thank you for inviting me, Kuldeep. It was a long time I've been waiting for this conversation. I'm very excited to be here. You've
Yeah.
built some awesome community and awesome products with UX Army and UX Insights, User Insights podcast, and I'm happy to be here. And let me introduce myself. So my name is Yuval Keshtcher.
Yeah.
I live in Tel Aviv. Just had my firstborn son 3 months ago, so I'm always tired
Congrats.
lately.
A lot of noise
A lot of
around and
noise.
sleepless nights.
Exactly, but I'm
Um,
happy. I'm happy.
yeah.
I'm very happy
Yeah.
about it. And
Hmm.
and let's talk a little bit about my background. So I started like in many different things in tech, like QA and so on. Transitioned into graphic design, transitioned into UX design, working in many different product teams, noticing that there isn't enough attention to the words that appears in the user interface. We didn't have any UX writers in any of the product teams I was working at, and I decided to build a community that kind of
Excellent.
talk about the fact
And everybody knows about it. I think it's the UX Writing Hub.
that's the UX Writing
Um,
Hub. It started as a Facebook group, to be honest. Not many
Fit.
people know about that, but it
Wow.
started as a Facebook group where I just invite
Mhm.
UX folks and say, hey, if you want to talk about this overlooked topic, just join this Facebook group and let's chat. Like back in 2017, Facebook groups
Mhm.
like had probably maybe a bit more popularity, and it got some traction. Like today it has many, like maybe 25,000 people, that specific Facebook group. And we managed to build a community named the UX Writing Hub that have like a newsletter with many different followers and a blog that is very active, a podcast, Writers in Tech podcast, which I host myself, and courses, training, and also an agency. So basically, it's a hub for everything UX writing that since then was already rebranded to content design. So now UX writing is also considered to be content design. Most of the time you talk about it, it's the same thing, or UX content design. And that's how I got here. And today I care a lot about UX writing, running the agency of the UX Writing Hub, running the training of the UX Writing Hub, and also highly invested in everything AI and how it could impact the user experience of all of the digital experiences combined.
Fantastic, fantastic. It's really a lot, and I think a big credit to you and the people who have helped you build this community, and also things that is not just commercial, but also having the training, the coaching, and I know tons of advice that you can offer when it comes to UX writing, especially for SaaS products. The product does the talking, so it's super critical, and I think it is going to be something that is kind of forever, and AI is only going to make it better and more known as compared to the tedious process of every line that's written out there. So yeah, fully on board with that. So we brought up the topic of content design versus UX writing. Tell me how they compare in a little more detail.
So back in 2021, we actually ran a very detailed research about these specific terms, comparing them, comparing like job posts to each other, and so on. And what we found out with that specific research is that it's more or less the same thing. While Meta will call this field content design, Google will call it UX writing, and it's just a terminology thing.
Ah, I see.
That's just
Mhm.
my opinion, by the way. Some people would argue with that opinion, but at the
Okay.
end of the day, what we're talking about here is product communication. It's how I am, as a communicator, as a content person, am going to communicate this specific feature that we have in our product to our users. How I'm going to communicate it well enough so it will be engaging, so it will increase the conversion if we are on the marketing areas of the product. Also, it will increase the retention if it's like maybe to create better onboarding experiences. If it's to reduce the churn, means that how can I create delightful experiences right now so people are not going to run to my competitors' products? And being a very, very successful communicator. When I just started out the UX Writing Hub, many companies call this specific field content strategist, and kind of
I
like
see.
ditched this term because it had too many overlaps with marketing, and people wanted to focus
Mhm.
more on product communication. And then many companies just changed it to UX writing and also content design. I think that the reason many people call it content design is because they understand that UX writers are designers too. They need to step into the
Yeah.
design file. They need to take this specific headline that in this specific dialogue box and make sure that they write micro copy, small pieces of copy that create engaging experiences, but but that it will fit one line and not two lines. So how can we design right now this sentence so it will fit in the dialog box and still communicate in
Yeah.
the best possible way? And that will definitely be considered content design. So basically,
Yeah. In
that's about it.
It's a very interesting perspective because one thing that always is a challenge has been a challenge in my mind is the perspective that you brought just now was about the marketing involvement. So who owns the copy? Is it marketing, or is it the product guys, or is it the designer? Who owns
Great
this?
question, Kuldip. It's a very good question, and it depends like on what uh, time in history are you asking it. Why? Because in 2021, 2022, many companies had a lot of money and they were just hiring, 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 hiring. We talked about it briefly before we start recording, and they had the privilege to have a marketing copywriter and also a product UX writer. They have, and companies
Eh,
to this they have that privilege if they have the money to do so, because it is a privilege that's you might as well want to have. When a startup company, which is very small, or a company that don't have a lot of fundings, sometimes they will take this person that is a great communicator and is very skilled and very
yeah.
talented, and they will ask this person to do the marketing writing and also the UX writing. So you ask a question about the ownership, which is a very, very good question, but I will also answer about like what is the actual differences between UX writing and copywriting. So let's say that you have a product named UXArmy, which is a great company and a great product. So
Thanks.
when you go to the website of UXArmy, your goal is to create conversions. You want to make sure that more people will sign up to UXArmy, just like any marketing website. And
Yep.
and uh, you are going to do that with copywriting, with marketing writing. You are going to be
Yep.
persuasive, not sleazy, but showing, not telling. Like you will probably show snippets of the product, and which you do already. I went through your website many different times before.
Uh-huh.
Snippets of your product, and maybe some like words and paragraph that say what is the benefit of that product and why you should use it, and that would be marketing writing written by a copywriter. Once the person sign up, you created the conversion, you are going to change the tone completely. You don't want them to sign in anymore. What you want to do is to guide them through your product. You want to make sure that they will know how to use it. You want to make sure that if you have like 10 different features, they will know all of these 10 features in the best possible way, and how to use them, and the fact that they could use them. You want to keep their engagement from shallow to very deep. You want to create deep connection through the way that they interact with your product. And that type of
Oh,
communication would be written in a different way. It's not the salesperson
wow.
that try to sell, but it's like the
Okay.
instructor that's trying to teach. And while the company is the same company and the communication is needs to be consistent, you are going to change the tone. And let's say that you have a single writer in your company because you can't, for example, you don't have the privilege to afford UX writing services and marketing services. So you will take these type of writers and guide them through how to communicate the digital product through the different phases from marketing to product.
And that's pretty challenging because one side, like you say, the onboarding part is done by marketing, and then which is a very fine line and very clear line.
Sometimes.
At the same time, the yeah, and the product is essentially talking by itself to the person who's using the product, which is mostly somebody else. Now, the challenge, which you might have solved it many times over and over, is how do these two copies remain in the same tone, and like what kind of framework would you suggest so that these don't look like coming from two different companies or two different people?
So I will say that you never really solve it. You always try to solve it. Why?
Okay.
Because like you try to make the best in order to solve it. Why? Because you have like products evolve and you have more features and more experiences that needs to be created, and writers change, and it's really challenging to create
Yeah,
consistent
yeah, it is
communicated experience in the
great.
way you communicate your product. So I didn't invent it here any, like I am working on a few framework that I'm using these days. But for example, if we
Uh,
look on marketing, few years back they had brand books, right, to create consistent brand
yeah,
experience.
right,
If you look on
right.
UX designers today, they have design systems in order to create visual, like consistent visual experience. What the UX
Now it's getting exciting. Yeah. What does the UX people have?
exactly. So UX designers have the design systems. What we
Well,
do as UX writers, content designers, is um, so there are two different names for it. We used to call it content guides.
well,
We still call it content style guides sometimes, or
I
content
see.
design systems. And basically,
Hmm. Interesting.
it's a communication style guide where we define the voice and tone in the digital experience.
Yeah.
We will,
Yeah.
and there is a lot of open source content style guides out there. I have an article sharing like 14
Oh,
different content style guides. You could just Google it at the UX Writing Hub's blog.
I I never frankly came across one because I never probably bothered to look at.
So check it out. There is a famous
Um,
one that is quite dated by
no, no.
MailChimp already. It's like from
Okay.
10 years ago.
Okay.
But
I see.
you have few like Intuit content design system is open source. You have the writing style guides of Google
I
side of the
see. Anyway,
material design system. Shopify have
right.
one,
Okay.
like many different companies open source style
Yeah.
guides.
A lot there, huh? It looks like.
Yeah, it's
Uh,
I will say that
yeah.
never trust an open source content style guide, because you like most of the
Wait.
successful style guides that people use as actual style guide are internal and are not
Mhm.
open for the world to see. From what I'm seeing in my perspective, building a
Yeah.
bunch of those for my clients. Um,
It's also like a shirt, right? Like not every shirt suits everybody, so you need to buy the right shirt, uh, or right hairstyle. If I would, if you think as so, it's about which which copy style suits which brand. So copying and just using it is will not do the job in reality, essentially.
Exactly. And sometimes it's also even work as some kind of a recipe. So when you have a
And
recipe, it's like you don't have to follow it, but it's some kind of a guideline of a direction of like this is how
yeah.
your dish should this is the direction for that dish,
Mm,
this is the
yeah.
guideline for that dish. If you walk
Yeah.
through this guideline, you'll have probably this dish. So the guideline is also some kind of a recipe guideline for your product's
Well,
communication, just like a design
yeah.
system.
I mean, steering away from this particular topic, let's talk about how copy is decided, because I always have this question about the ad world also, where they have a creative and they want to check how it is. Now, steering away from that, UX Army having our own proprietary user testing platform.
Yeah.
The question is, how to test copy? What's your recommended methods to test copy?
So I'll break the answer to two. One would be like
Okay.
how to decide if like how to choose the right copies. So first of all, we try to do like with every UX decision to be informed by data. So we'll see like data. We will do research,
Mhm.
obviously, and like user interviews, talk to our users, understand their pain points in the best possible way, do social listening, see like how people are talking about this type of pain points in products and services, do benchmark and
Yeah.
competitor analysis to see how other people are in our niche are communicating, and based on that come with an hypothesis, because you never you don't go only with the data, you also go with your gut feeling, because that's what keeps us human.
Wow.
uh,
That's a lot, by the way. Yeah. It's almost another world out there. It's just like below the ocean. It's almost as much as above the ocean. It sounds the same when it comes to UX copy.
you have like 5 words that took maybe months to figure out, or like a
Then,
feature that was named in a way that maybe it took the company years to even figure
then
out that that's the name the feature should be named.
wow.
And that's how to come up with solutions. Now about testing your copy, that's a bit more challenging.
Yeah.
Just like with
Okay.
UX design, you're not going to test every
Hey.
color of every button.
Yep.
You're probably going to test user flows. For example, you're going to rewrite or redesign with your design team a new onboarding flow, and then you
Yep.
you could test that, like how many people actually finished it, or maybe do like actually user test with people and see how well they finish that specific user flow. Obviously you
Yeah.
could do test for copy only if you have the
Right.
like technical tools to do so. I know that many big companies have the privilege to test almost every piece of copy, like I don't know, booking.com are testing every single
Yeah.
copy on screen because they have
Right.
a lot of money, a lot of team
Yeah.
members.
And also a lot of persona as well. So probably there's something for tools company to fill there.
Yes, 100%. It's there's a lot of AI involvement specifically in that, where
Yeah.
booking I identify like what create better conversions for his specific persona, and then they have this AI that kind of change the copy live based on what will perform better.
Okay. That's
Yeah,
interesting.
they have that because they have a lot of money.
Yeah.
But most of us, even like big companies that earn a lot of money, like B2B products, they don't have the privilege to test every single copy on screen.
Yeah.
We have some tests that are quite easy, like testing open
Hey.
rates of email, click-through rates of email, like
What?
download
Mm-hmm.
rates of apps in the App Store, and in those specific areas, it's quite easy to test the copy. In some
Mm-hmm.
areas, it's a bit more challenging. So we will go
Yeah,
for
because it.
testing like
Yeah.
user flows and not like specific
Yeah.
copy.
Okay. And I mean, I can imagine that, like, for example, UX Army platform itself allows compare, like, checking various versions, and it doesn't take much. You can just create probably two Figma images in the Figma, and then just ask people to navigate around, read, and tell us like what's which is better and why. That's also a possibility. The more interesting parts, I would say, or more challenging, would be, if I can think of, are things like multi-language, things like culture, the point of dialogue that you were making earlier. If a dialogue has, let's say, for example, the German language is too long, and Thai language has hardly breaks in between. So we have those kind of challenges. And I just wonder, like, how will you get different cultures or different languages? Maybe let's tackle the language first. How does a language gets tackled? Because not everybody knows how to read and write every language, but the product comes in so many languages.
So I know that UX writing is considered to be a small branch in the huge umbrella called user
What?
experience, which is under a huge,
Not after today.
a bigger
Mm,
umbrella called the product. So under the product,
mm,
we have smaller umbrella called user experience. Under it, we have the UX writing, and under that umbrella, we have a smaller branch named localization,
okay.
um, which
Mm,
is how products are being localized. Which, even though it's like a
yeah,
small umbrella, that's that specific aspect worth a lot of money for many companies. That specific aspect would be
yeah,
how my product is going to penetrate different markets outside of my original market. How I'm going to penetrate the Spanish-speaking market, German-speaking market,
yeah,
and so on. And that's the practice called localization. Many people
yeah,
transition to this field from translation. So they had a lot of
yeah,
experience in translation. Now they're doing localization. Now you probably ask yourself, but wait, Yuval, what's the difference between translation and localization? The different is
mm,
the UX writing. The different is
yeah,
keeping it user centric. Why? Because you do have cultural differences. You have more vocabulary. Literally, you have more vocabulary in the German language than
yeah,
in, I don't know, another, like in the Hebrew language, right? So
yeah,
probably you have many more ways to communicate what you're trying to communicate, and if you use like Google
yeah,
Translate, you're probably going to miss the cultural aspects. There's
yeah,
even a chance that if you like directly translate it, you're still going to miss it, because if you would say that specific word, it would be inappropriate in another language. um,
okay.
so the solution for that, and that's a difficult solution, is to find a bilingual UX writer. So if you, yeah,
Wow, that's a lot.
I know, but companies do it. And just imagine you have
Mm,
someone that lives in Belgium, like my friend Peter
right.
Jan. He lives actually in
Okay.
Poland, but is originally Belgium,
Mhm.
and he speaks maybe four different languages. I know that he knows Polish, and he know English, and
Okay.
Dutch, and I think now Portuguese, and is also UX
Right.
writer. So he's a very
Okay.
good asset to all of his clients, because his clients
Yes. Wow.
could work with him, and he could help them to penetrate this type of markets. It could even, a person like that could even manage teams of translators, while he will just give them
Okay.
like the UX aspect. Like, this is the type of direction we should have UX wise, because he understands the cultural aspects of people in Poland, or the cultural aspects of people in Brazil.
Yeah.
Um, and then people could pick it up, like translators that don't have a lot of UX experience, they could pick it up and and work with these guidelines. Anyway, that's the practice of localization. On my
Yeah.
experience, bilingual UX writers are the best solution for that. I feel like AI is also kind of helping. It's not solving, like understanding and knowing the other language, but you could always talk with Claude or ChatGPT and ask to
Mm.
translate, but also ask like to identify risks and pain
Yeah.
points, and where there is a potential to forwards to be lost in translation and stuff like that.
Yeah. Mm. Yeah. So, lastly, I would like to discuss how bad things could be if there is, let's say, not a copy control or uh, mechanism built in an organization, especially the organizations that are making SaaS products. How difficult it could be for those companies if they don't have localization, or even, let's say, even in English they don't have uh, a copywriter or UX copywriter per se.
So first of all, companies doing their own thing, building and building and building, they are not going to, like smart entrepreneurs like yourself, are not going to like wait for people to make everything perfect, right? We need to move forward. But
Uh,
at the end of the day, the risk is that there's going to be poor user experience for many different reasons. One would be that there are areas in the products that are overlooked, means people just don't get it and they don't know how to use
yeah.
it, and maybe you worked on a feature for a long time, but not enough people
Mm,
know about it and not enough people even use it because it's not
yeah.
clear enough. That's like mellow risk. If you want to go for a very big risk, so a very big risk is just to create something that is catastrophic. For example, let's say that you work in financial app or like a banking app, and
Yeah.
uh, and and you create like a message that is very like not sensitive. For example,
Yeah.
loan is not approved, right? So this is a very someone apply for a loan, the loan is not approved. So you could just write whatever copy, like let the developers write it, nobody cares, blah blah blah,
Mm,
and then like it will say like loan declined, and people would not understand what's going on. They'll be very sad about it.
yeah.
That, like people are going to be
Exactly.
upset with your services because loan
Mm.
declined.
And they may not come
They're
back.
not
They may not come back ever.
they're not
Ever.
going to come back. But and that's not
Mm.
even the biggest catastrophe. It's just a small catastrophe.
Yeah.
But if you would
Mhm.
write like with empathy and you have UX writer on board that would just communicate it and say, "Hey, your loan was not approved, but this is what you can do if you still want to use our products and services, and maybe offer a solution
Yeah.
or an alternative, or maybe give them
Yeah.
like a guideline for next time, or just
Yeah.
overall try to create better better experience overall." That would
Yeah.
probably be better. Another catastrophe is just like, I don't know, people doing mistakes while using your product. I don't know, they use UXArmy
Yeah.
and they have this big folder that they worked on for the past 3 years, and they pressed the button. They didn't understand what they were doing because people work with, like, you have this book by Daniel Kahneman, Think Fast, Think Slow. So you have the
Uh-huh.
automatic brain. So people usually work with the automatic brain, and they don't stop and think, and then
Mm.
voila, they deleted 3 years of work because because you didn't create enough friction and communication to make them stop
Yeah.
and think and understand exactly
Mm.
what they are doing. So that's like the most catastrophic thing they could do.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that said, it also brings the other topics that are also very important. This copy, like how many copywriters do you expect in a product of size, say, it's going a product which is like, let's say, a B2B SaaS product, which is, let's say, an HR product. What's the approximate size of the team that you expect,
So
given that it's only English? Let's talk just
so
English.
based on the survey that we've been doing in the UX Writing Hub, ask like
Mhm.
a good point is always to compare to the amount of designers in the company, right? The UX
I
designers.
see.
And we always ask like what's the ratio of designers and UX writers
Yep.
and UX designers in your company. So in the
Okay.
beginning, like 6 years ago, 5 years ago, it was like 1 to 100. It's like we have 100 designers in the company. I'm the only writer. It's a catastrophe. It's terrible. I'm not happy.
Yeah.
But we also
Yeah.
asked how happy people are with this amount, with the
Uh,
status. So based on our survey, based on our data, you're a data person.
sure.
So the
Mhm.
perfect ratio of writers in product teams would be 1 to 3 to 1 to 5.
Okay.
Means for every
Amazing.
3 to 5 designers have one UX writer. That means that
Okay.
if you have 3 different product
Mhm.
teams with 3 different designers, it's a good
Mm.
likelihood that you might want to have one one writer for all of these teams.
I see.
Uh,
It sounds reasonable. Yeah.
yeah, because obviously writing is simpler. It's not simpler, but it takes less time than designing.
Yeah.
So that's the ratio. Um, yeah,
That's true.
that's what we've been noticed that is successful one.
Yeah. And I'm tempted to ask this question, like how do you put define KPIs for UX writers? Because you have to measure the performance of every individual. For designers, it could be usability issues and this kind of things, and number of designs produced or number of flows defined with number of flaws. How do you define how do you define the metrics for?
So that's a very good question. Every time I meet with my colleagues from Singapore, that's always the question. And very analytical. I'm very analytical over there. I
Hmm.
love your country, and I'm very looking forward to come back
Yeah,
and do maybe an event even in Singapore in the next following
sure, very welcome.
month. So if anyone listening to it,
No,
tune in. I'm going to visit in the next year or so, hopefully with
for
my
sure.
toddler.
Yeah, for sure,
Uh,
for sure.
but I will. But back to your question. So, first of all, it's tough to measure. It's tough. It's difficult. Like, how do we measure
Yeah,
this specific? Even in UX design in general, it's difficult. To,
yeah,
you could say, okay, based on the output, based of the assets, design assets that you have. I'm talking about UX design now. So you
yeah.
can't really measure a person by the amount of screens they produce because they might produce 100 screens
Yeah,
and they're all of them
yeah,
are shit, right? So make
yeah,
sure that people are actually doing great work, uh, uh,
yeah,
uh, uh, and the way that you can measure it, um, as I said, it's challenging. I will say that
yeah.
if you want to have an idea about how to measure, it would be like with amount of successful project that was eventually implemented and used by users. That's like what I would say.
Yeah. It yeah.
And yeah, and I would ask you, how do you normally measure UX design? What are your KPIs for
So
designers?
so we yeah we define the KPIs by, let's say, if design is provided by our designers for UXArmy, then we run a usability test because we practice what we preach,
Right.
and then we try to see how many usability errors, how many people could actually complete the task, was the task completed on time, and that defines the designer's KPI. And we set a certain goal saying that per feature, or let's say overall in a quarter, you can't have you need to have this many errors. That's kind of upper limit. This many usability problems and so on. So it's something that's maybe the framework is not yet available because the number of copywriters are relatively low. They started to increase at one point in time phenomenally, but then there were this technological fall through or meltdown, which actually has paused this. But it's something to think about, not just you, but also us as a company providing a research platform, that how can the KPIs be measured, not just for copy, but also for other aspects of design as well. So it's something to think forward, and I wouldn't say there will be a gold standard because every interface is different, the audience is different, but somewhere we have to bring.
And another thing I want to say is also the I would add some KPIs with how this person works in teams, because if we
Yeah,
have like one writer for three designers, this person need to be very good in also internal communication, running internal
right.
workshops, communicating with people, communicating with each other, sharing ideas with your team, and being very available also to people that need you, because
Yeah,
when
absolutely.
people need you, they are going to need you, and being available for them,
Mhm.
that's a good KPI, like how available this person is for different tasks that we give them.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's also a good KPI in my
yeah.
opinion.
When gone through this discussion with you, we have come towards the end of the time. but we would like to definitely see you in Singapore sometime, and also we will be hopefully working soon on some projects together which are lining up, and therefore we see a lot of value in it. And also, as UX Army, I think the biggest challenge we have is to provide the right copy for participants that we have on our panel, because like you said, localization is super important, and sometimes just AI translation with is AI translation doesn't cut the bill, doesn't
Just like AI
doesn't
writing
cut
doesn't
it.
cut UX writing.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So yeah, so there is a lots to be done here, and I think there's a lot of scope. um I hope we'll get an opportunity to speak again and also meet in
Oh,
person.
that will be amazing.
uh yeah, and wish you a very nice day ahead.
You too. Thank you so
um
much, Kuldeep.
Catch up soon. Yeah, it's been a pleasure.
Always a pleasure talking to you. Looking forward to our next meeting.
Okay.
See
Yeah,
you. Thank you.
sure, soon. Yeah, see you.
Ciao.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of User Insights. We hope you gained valuable insights from our conversation.